Orale! Bienvenidos and welcome to the Familia FFB podcast. This is your host, Jorge Martin, NFL Insider. We're going to Texas, Houston Texans. Yes. We're going to Hook 'em Horns. Well, a little bit outside
No, that's
of Hook 'em
not
Horns.
Hook 'em Horns.
It's a little bit south of Hook 'em Horns.
No, this Hook 'em Horns is
right.
this. I am a Longhorn grad.
That's right.
This stands for Houston Home Horns. I'm actually going to be doing something that talks about the origins of this symbol as a Houston symbol. But yeah, don't mess with the horns.
Love it. Well, there's a lot of people got the horns last year, and it's unexpectedly, and I think this is one of the most fun and exciting teams, and one of the most fun and exciting hosts that we've had on this Familia FFB NFL Insider Series. Stephanie Stradley, she comes from you see her work at cron.com, part of the Houston Chronicle, and you find her at Steph Stradley on Twitter X. She has been one of the people that's gone 4 for 4 on this series, and for the first time we're like openly not just hoping. There's actual optimism in Houston Texans country. So mi amiga, welcome in. Thank you for let's have a happy talk this time.
Yes, most definitely. Well, it was happy last year, and we're just gonna brain erase the rest of it.
Yeah, happy and hopeful last year,
Yes.
but now it's kind of like happy and there's expectations, and it's gonna be fun.
Now, I actually had expectations last year, and I think that starts at the top.
Yes.
DeMeco Ryans is an amazing person. My first year writing at cron.com was his first year as a rookie player, and he was an astounding person then. Like, they were calling him captain his rookie year as a middle linebacker for the Houston Texans. And we've come full circle. He went to the Eagles. He got some time coaching for San Francisco. But when he came back to Houston, the expectations were set, because if you know him, a little bit about him as a human being and as a football mind, you had no doubt that, we weren't going to just kind of, maybe someday this team's going to be competitive. No, he set the standard from his first press conference, where he said, first thing I'm going to do is put together the staff. It's going to be a staff that's supportive of the players, and it's going to have diverse experiences, from very experienced to players, and they were all going to be teachers. And he assembled a staff, and he attracted a staff, and he's actually kept a lot of the best people in that staff from year 1 to 2. And you could see that happen in last year's camp. And now, all these guys know where the light switches are. So this is year 2. There's higher expectations. But if you saw them do work last year in OTAs and in mini camp, you knew what was possible, because they were doing some things even in camp where you're like, really, they're making this much progress and they're showing this much urgency this quickly. It was remarkable to watch, and I'm looking forward to this year, because I have no idea what's going to happen.
But you know what? Here's the thing. I think every team that brings on a new regime would love to hit on the coach or the quarterback, but they hit on both. That's like the lottery. I don't remember the last time that happened, where the coach and quarterback came on brand new and they both clicked in the first season.
And I think part of it is, a lot of times there's situations where maybe they don't have a scheme in place that is a proven scheme for whoever the offensive coordinator is, or maybe the GM drafts somebody that the offensive coordinator doesn't want or doesn't fit in what they do. You had a situation last year, which is what all teams want, but they don't necessarily get, where you have a head coach who is the leader of the team. Because, we can talk about shared responsibilities and stuff, but you can see throughout the league, teams that don't have a head coach that's driving the bus, they don't have a direction. So he drives the bus. They have a general manager who had to do a lot of things in his first couple of years that were difficult, because he was in a situation of not his own choice, as far as like the salary cap and what the roster composition was, and dealing with player that didn't need to be here anymore. So we're not going to talk about that, but it was not an ideal situation. And he had to do some things that were really beyond what a GM needs to be doing, because his head coaches weren't necessarily doing the things that they needed them to do. And so last year you have a head coach, you have a GM, then you assemble a staff where the staff works together, because you have a lot of teams that assemble superstar staffs, but maybe they don't have the same philosophies. Maybe they don't work on the same schemes together. No. They put together a staff which kept some of the better coaches of the previous teams, brought in new coaches, and they really worked to make something that was a consistent future. And, they were running a proven scheme. It's, that old Kubiak to Shanahan, or Shanahan to Kubiak to Shanahan pipeline of all these coaches that are out there in the league. And you can see, how, you have an offensive coordinator, and then you pick a quarterback that fits what you're doing. And, DeMeco Ryans kind of let the cat out of the bag and said, well, there's two quarterbacks we'd be fine with, right? And they got CJ Stroud, who has fit the bill. And really, if you look at just watching him in practice, he is a ball delivery system. Like, do you need a short throw? Yeah, he does a short, very catchable ball. Then, if he has to throw it deep, he's throwing it deep. Is he finding what the defense is giving him? Yes, because that's what this whole scheme is about. The whole scheme is, if everybody runs their routes right, everybody does their job, there's going to be holes where the ball can go. And it's just the decision maker needs to just be a ball delivery system. And CJ Stroud is that and more. Like, he has challenged the staff, and the staff has challenged him. And that comes from the top. And the top is DeMeco Ryans set the standard. And he doesn't want people to go above and beyond. He just wants people to be their best selves. And then he wants his staff putting players in situations where they can succeed. And he's done that.
I think, and I don't think it's more prevalent than with CJ Stroud. I mean, I think he had a surprisingly good game his first game out, and then it seemed like his big games were like at home. Big surprise, you're playing indoors, but then all of a sudden things evolved. He had, the big game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 470 yards and 5 touchdowns. Big game in Cincinnati, going toe to toe with Joe Burrow. What you saw last year, and especially what you were seeing at the end, where they won big in the playoffs against the Browns, that progression, where do you see him kind of like taking a leap this year, where now he's going off as the sixth or 7th quarterback in early fantasy football drafts?
Well, I mean, I think one of the undertold stories of last year was just so much chaos that the Texans had on their offensive line. Like, they were going to go into the season with a rookie center, and he was doing well. And then they had to replace him with another rookie center. And so they were shuffling a lot of players around the offensive line. And really, it didn't look like they, like some games, you could see that maybe some of the play calling was being a little protective of the offensive line, but not that much. Like, they were not playing games like they were, playing with training wheels on. Like, if their expectation is, if you make this roster, whether you're a rookie or an experienced player, you're expected to be a starter, because you might be. And especially that is the trend in the NFL, where you're going 17 games, maybe 18 games in the future. How do you get through an entire season and then get into the playoffs with all your key players, able to perform? And part of that's going to be, you need everybody to be your key player. You need everybody to be able to be prepared to play maybe positions that are not their strength. So that's when you end up having, a right tackle playing, left guard, or, any number of choices. And so Stroud, obviously, he did not play like a rookie last year, which, he did a lot of things that we have assumptions about how you develop rookies. Like, you need to have a dominant defense. Well, their defense played very well, but not like dominant. Like,
Right.
some of the rookie quarterbacks have benefited from having dominant defenses kind of carry them. No, sometimes the offense carried the defense. Sometimes the defense carried the offense. A lot of those games, they were just complementary and just dominant on both sides of the ball, including special teams. So, and then he didn't make decisions like a rookie did. Like, he wasn't having a lot of turnovers. He wasn't, fumbling the snap, which is like some basic stuff that sometimes happens. I mean, it was remarkable to see. So he has that learning that he's already gotten last year. Hopefully he has a healthier offensive line. Hopefully, it's not hopefully, more of that offensive, players and staff are used to being together. And then you've added some additional key pieces. Like, Stroud did not have a dependable running game for portions of that season. Their stuff rate in the red zone is terrible. And, the key thing for this particular type of offense is they don't necessarily want the running back to get home runs, which they can do if they're running on all cylinders. They do need to get positive yardage every time, and they weren't necessarily getting that. And I think they're going to get that this year. So when you have improvements in your skill positions, which is how things are projected, and maybe you have some additional health on the offensive line, I mean, it's astounding to see like what the potential of that is. And the potential of that is everybody getting fed. All the wide receivers getting fed. Mixon getting fed. CJ Stroud having an amazing second year quarterbacking. Like, if you have things going the way that they want them to go and have the discipline to go, the sky's the limit. Everybody gets fed.
Oh, it's gonna be so good. So, I mean, really, that's where that's where the growth could be. And here's the thing that I thought was amazing. Nico Collins definitely took a step forward to become a top flight wide receiver, probably a top 10 wide receiver in the NFL, maybe even better than that. Tank Dell was one of the best rookie wide receivers, probably the best rookie wide receiver, not named Puka Nacua last year. And then you added Stefon Diggs, a former All-Pro who's gone over 1,000 yards 4 years in a row in Buffalo. To me, from the outside looking in, I think Nico is still the number one target on there. But can you give me an idea on how? But you tell me. I want you to tell me.
I want to define terms here. If you talk to the staff doesn't like the whole term of number one wide receiver, any of that. The players don't want, like, really the way that this scheme works is the ball's supposed to go where the ball's supposed to go.
Mm-hmm.
And some weeks it may be that you have matchup benefits in particular parts of the field, or against particular, like they have wide receivers, like really a depth of wide receivers who are good at different things. And so if a defense struggles against a particular, look or a particular type of wide receiver, or they can't defend, like those are the guys that are going to go off on a particular week. Or let's say you see that particular defense has a problem with the tight ends, or running backs coming out of the backfield and catching the ball. Like some teams are not good at defending that. So like everybody that they have as a skill position has something different that they bring to the table. And the benefit to Diggs is that, he has been consistent. He's a really good competitor, and he has that kind of wily thing that gets him open, like the way he runs routes. Like, he is a professional wide receiver, and he just wants to win. So part of that winning is making sure that his teammates have the same standard, and they do. Like, they're all kind of pushing each other and having that kind of healthy competition with each other. So, you know, when you're looking at, you know, the skill positions for the Texans, you need to wait till the end of the camp because, you know, injuries happen. And that's the biggest thing. Like the reason why you get a Diggs is, you know, Nico, you know, though he was healthy last year, he wasn't necessarily healthy in the previous years. Dell was having a great season until he got his injury. And then you had other guys that stepped up, but, you know, there's limitations sometimes to maybe what their upside is. Or maybe you just want to bring somebody into your locker room that gives you a particular type of juice that gets everybody better, because that's really, like, they're not really, you know, apologies to the fantasy community, they're putting together a football team. So they, you know, they're not interested in who's number one, who's number two, and who's getting the ball, or like we have one great guy. Like each week somebody else is going to go off, but if they do things that the way that they want, like ideally, this is how most football teams are, that they're going to want to put it on teams really early on the offense, get them on their heels, and then the defense will just keep teeing off on the other side and then get a big lead and then just run it down people's throat in the second half of games because you've already gotten a huge lead because you just put it on people so hard in the first half of games. Now, that's hard to do because that's what everybody's trying to do. But if you have so many targets and like the benefit of the Shanahan, Kubiak, whatever you want to call it, offense is if you're running it correctly, there will always be a place for the ball to go, and you're making it really hard on defenders. And if you have somebody dealing like CJ Stroud, you know, it's not like he is, you know, he's worked with offenses that have lots of, you know, targets at Ohio State. So just look at that.
He kept those guys happy.
Well, yeah, and it's not just like keep guys happy, you know.
He fed them.
Like I want to Stefon Diggs does not need me to defend him, but what I will say is I don't like when public figures get kind of labeled in a cartoony way that doesn't look at the context of his situations. Like people compete in different ways. He is definitely a competitor. Everybody says like he does the work. He's good with his teammates. And he wants to win. And if you're in an environment like that where you have a high performer, his expectations are even higher for the people who are coaching him. And so, and the people delivering the ball, like he wants everybody to be their best people. And, you know, has he denigrated people in the previous places he's been at? No. Has he had the opportunity to do so? Yes. But he didn't. I mean, he just is a competitive guy who has a very high standard. Now, does that show the way that people like to show like what people's expectations are? Maybe, maybe not. But I mean, it is completely rational for somebody to want a situation where everybody is working as hard as he is. And the Texans under DeMeco Ryans has a lot of different personalities. Like people are allowed to be themselves. And I can't say that that's necessarily the case at every team. You know, just you can be yourself, just don't embarrass us. You know, like treating people like men. And sometimes there can be differences on like what is considered respectful, what's not considered respectful, but ultimately, the team that DeMeco Ryans demands and really invites is just healthy competition and everybody being their best selves. And that's all that any of us want in our jobs, is to be, you know, given the opportunity to be our best selves. And that's easy when things are going well. When things are going poorly, that's kind of the test of things. You know, like if you're fixing things as a season's going, how do you do that together? And, you know, it's easy to talk about these things. It's a different thing to do these things. But I don't have an issue with adding competitive players to a a team that demand high, standards because they've shown that they can perform.
No, and so I guess the answer is everybody. I mean, all of them. I mean, as you were talking, I thought of the whole dynamic that the 49ers kind of have, where Bobby Slowick came from and Nico Ryan's obviously came from, and just how really they were able, sometimes it would, Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel both got theirs, but sometimes it would just be either one of them, it would be more their time to shine. And yeah, I mean, it's going to come, I think you're right. It's going to come down to the matchup. Both, I mean, they've all won so much. Friend of the show, amigo of the show, Matt Harmon, who really studies wide receivers so much, was big on a Nico Collins breakout last year, and Stefon Diggs, he was big on his breaking out when he was in Buffalo. I mean, yeah, I mean, it's he's having a tough time, figuring out. But yeah, it's going to be all of them, and we're probably going to see more. I don't know if we'll see a true pecking order until really the end of the season when we tally up the targets. But I think
I think, and then a lot of times what we don't see on the outside is we don't necessarily know health-wise what's happening with different players.
Can I ask you a quick question on one of those players? Dell.
Yeah. Dell, he looks great.
Really?
Yes. Like, I went to.
He had two injuries.
Yeah. That's
ones.
hard. That's a hard thing to go through. I watched him during OTAs and mini camp, and of course, I'm, looking at him like, is he limping? It's horrible to be kind of observed like that, but people are like, hey, is he okay? And if you did not know anything horrible happened to him, you would not know. You just have no idea. And his coworkers are saying the same thing. And he talked about that incident of being shot, and I don't know if you or any of the people listening have gone through near-death experiences or very serious incidents where like all your friends are contacting you to see how you are. It changes your appreciation of living and all the details of everything. Like, just everybody's life experiences are different. And I bet he's going into 2024 with the full understanding that tomorrows are not guaranteed. Like, we are talking about, the Houston Texans being a potential Super Bowl team. And of course, there's so many different factors that go into that, including, they have what looks to be a very difficult schedule this year. But if you have a team that connects and clicks and plays hard for each other and has true belief, people are like, oh, you should believe. True belief comes from seeing that the things that are promised are done. And so when they said, hey, we're going to get all these coaches and teachers in, and they did that. They have schemes on both sides of the ball that are things that you can believe in. So there is a high level of belief in this team, and you're going to need some things, all teams need breaks to go their way. It's an injury sport. So they have tried to structure this whole roster in an injury sport thing. Like, they could have just said, hey, Nico's good and Dell's good, and and we have a lot of really good wide receivers. Let's just run it back. You can do that, or you can just go, let's just keep reloading. And to me, the 2024 Texans are a reload team. Like, they did not make excuses last year, like, oh, these aren't our guys and we don't have the ideal situation. No. They developed a roster last year. You could see a lot of the potential in what they were doing. Players like Nico Collins were not at their best because they really weren't in a great scheme. And even their quarterbacks at the time were not in the best situations. Like, nobody was in the best situations previous to that. So you had some players where you could project that they were going to do a lot better when they were in a more proven scheme with, better coaching all the way around. And so now, like, yeah, like the realistic optimism. It's okay to feel happy. Like that is
That's the
the
pull
thing.
quote.
Well, no, because like, you know, like
I love that though.
Sometimes like fans were like, well, you know, I've been hurt before. No, like I get it. I get it. Like the Houston Texans over the years have had a lot of incredible people working for them, but like it's not enough for a lot of incredible people. You have to have everything come together in a way that makes sense, from GM to head coach to your coordinators to your position coaches, and then the individual personalities and the individual talents need to work together, and you need to have reload players that when somebody gets hurt, just like riding a motorcycle, it's not if you're going to get hurt, it's when you're going to get hurt and how badly, right? Like that's what football is. It's an injury sport. So you have to be prepared that the guy that you just drafted, who's at the end of your roster, or somebody you grab off the practice squad, can get starter minutes and perform at a high level. And that's the expectation. They're all working together to make that happen. And it's a beautiful thing to see, but it's really hard to put together and it's really hard to maintain. But for 2024, I like their chances. Now you just have to tee it up and, you know, fast forward a month.
And hopefully people are healthy. So a question, you know, one of the this was a year that teams took chances on older running backs.
Yeah.
And the 49ers are famous for, you know, kind of like they grabbed Christian McCaffrey and turned him into a different player.
Yeah.
Again, Bobby Slowick coming from the same offensive ecosystem, bringing in Joe Mixon, who was very much a bell cow running back with Cincinnati. Is it I don't want to project again, but looking at the way Devin Singletary got used in the second half of last season, are we looking at a similar role that Mixon is going to have, who apparently in some of the numbers really runs well and would really run well in this kind of scheme?
That's the story I'm really looking forward to this upcoming year, because there were a number of times last season where I kind of didn't want third and short because I didn't trust that the running back could get the yard, you know, and that's why, you know, Dameon Pierce kind of was put on the back bench, and, you know, he's coming back for this year, and maybe a second year in the system will be helpful. And then also maybe it being more of a change of pace, because, you know, what's interesting to me bringing Joe Mixon on is he's a bigger back. You know, Devin Singletary, real sharp guy, really good teammate, not a big body. Just in terms of just size.
True. Yeah.
And then Joe Mixon has a background where he can catch the ball. And usually if I saw Joe Mixon in short yardage when the offensive line is doing well, like that's automatic. Like you want some automatic yards where if you need 2 yards or 1 yard, you're going to get 1 yard or 2 yards. And some backs just have a vision for that. Now, it would also be helpful for the offensive line to be healthier and guys playing in the spots that they excel the most at, because that didn't happen for the Texans last year. But yeah, if you were to talk about like who would look good in this type of system, given their skill sets, of who was possibly available, Joe Mixon, you know, check, check, check. You know, is he good in short yardage? Check. Does he get stuffed at the line? No, he does not. Like that, you can't have that happen. Is he a credible threat to catch the ball? Because you can't run this offense the way you want to run it if the running back isn't credible in catching the ball. And if you look at like the best guy in the scheme, or one of the best guys in the scheme, like Arian Foster, I watched every snap of Arian Foster. I projected Arian Foster.
I remember that.
Being great.
You made people money that year.
I made a lot of people good money that year. And part of that was he's a back with some size. Like he's not, he's actually a very sizable back. Very good vision. Money in the end zone. Like in the red zone. Like he could sometimes just walk right in, just following his blocks. He knew his assignments, because this is an offense that if you can't be trusted to protect the quarterback as a running back, then you're not getting on the field, because that's a fundamental thing. Like you can't just be on the field when everybody knows. Like the key part of this scheme is it can't be an obvious run or pass. Like you need to be able to credibly be able to pass it to the running back. So yeah, like when I saw that the Texans got Joe Mixon, I'm like, okay, let's check that box. Now, does he stay healthy throughout the whole season? Well, he's been a pretty healthy back over the years,
Yeah.
not
especially the last couple of years, 2-3 seasons.
And staying healthy is a skill, actually, like he has shown that he can stay healthy and play through some things. And this is a team that he's going to be wanting to do that with. And they paid him, and they obviously like him. I mean, he's been everything that they wanted to date. Are there some concerns about like what would happen if he went down? Yeah, I guess there's some concerns that way from a regular football perspective, but from a fantasy perspective, I'm very high on Joe Mixon, just very high. Because even if they are going off with the wide receiver game, we're pass.
Mm-hmm.
I get the sense that Bobby Slowick doesn't want to get one-dimensional anyway. Like it's not good for his quarterback to be just in the, dropping back and hoping that, somebody doesn't step on him and stuff. So just as kind of mixing it up and keeping it fresh, he's gonna get some time on the field. And if he's automatic at the red zone, people feed him. They're just
You got me pumped, because one of the things, it's going to be very similar to the setup he had in Cincinnati, where you got stud wide receivers on the outside, so he's never gonna they've got to pay attention to them, so there's going to be they're never going to stuff the box on him. The offensive line. I mean, you already talked about the offensive line. I don't even need to ask about him.
And I will say that when way back in the day when I was analyzing this kind of scheme, and it's not the same scheme that Kubiak ran in 2006, right, but there are some similarities. And one of the things when you talk to the offensive linemen in this scheme is the more you play together and on the field together, the better it gets, or as it was described to me, is like, imagine 5 angry elephants. All working together. Good luck. But it takes a while before it
coordinate those elephants.
Coordinates together. And so because I would ask the question, hey, if this is so effective for running backs and this, why isn't everybody running this scheme? Now, compared to then, more teams are running, but it is hard to get the offensive line working with the rest of the scheme, so it's working in concert together, and making sure that you have the roster that you want on the offensive line of big guys who can move, because you can't have just gigantic guys that aren't good movers. Like you need guys that can move together for this offense to be its best. So they have some very good offensive line pieces. They need them to stay healthy together. And a big part of an offensive line working very well is that you have a quarterback who knows what he's doing. And the amount of knowledge that he knows now is substantially more than what it was last year. Like his learning curve was very quick, but he's a very responsible guy. I mean, CJ Stroud's very, very impressive person.
Oh, yeah, big time. One last question on the offensive side of the ball. Dalton Schultz had a good season, parlayed it into a 3-year extension. But with those wide receivers, how much is going to be, how much of the pie is going to be left for him?
I think there's going to be plenty. like really this offense is like, okay, anybody who's on the field isn't just a blocker unless it's offensive line. Like they want everybody to be credible targets. So, you know, he got fed a little bit every game, and then some games he got fed a lot. And a lot of that depends on what defenses are doing. And it may be in year 2, defenses are like, okay, well, we think Stroud is good at this, so we're going to start doing this. And then there's answers to everything. And I think between Slowick and Stroud, they can figure out some of those answers. But there are teams, like if you're looking for matchups, you can see the stats of, you know, as the course of the season goes, or like which teams really struggle against against tight ends. And so like when you see that situation where like a team struggles against the tight ends, like, all right, pick up this guy or start this guy. I mean, I think he definitely has a good connection with Stroud.
That's important right there. I mean, he definitely, I know he got more run when Dell was out.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, no, it's, he's definitely going to be an important part of the offense. It's going to be very interesting how much they pass this year, considering the fact that that this offense really emphasizes the run, and the run married with the passing game.
Ideally, like I had talked to people last year about this, and I'm like, hey, are tight ends back? And I'm like, and they're like, yeah, tight ends are back. Like the tight end position in this offense isn't just a skinny blocker. Like it's a legitimate part of the offense. And they don't want the tight end just to be a skinny blocker. They want the tight end to go out and make defenses nervous because they really want to spread the field, like where you are going to have to defend every single bit of the field or else you're going to get torched.
Oh man, it's gonna be awesome.
I hope so.
It's fun.
I'm very interested to see year 2 in this offense. Like it was really fun to watch last year, and like and beyond, like just, I mean, for me personally, like I've been watching football my whole life. And I had like views of like, well, you need to have a great running game for a rookie, or you need to have a great defense for a rookie quarterback, or a rookie quarterback will do these things. And this is everything that I've wanted, because it's not just that he is a good quarterback, but he is a good quarterback within a good scheme.
Yeah.
Because, you know, whether you're looking at other teams or the Texans, sometimes you have an offense that's good. Sometimes you have a defense that's good. Sometimes you have a good quarterback and a bad scheme. Maybe you have a good scheme, but maybe the quarterback has some issues. Nope. This is everything I've ever wanted and everything I've ever needed. And it's here in my heart.
Oh,
I want to see this. I want to see this. I want you to see this. And if you're out there and you don't really root for a particular team, this Texans team is really easy to root for, and you can't be accused of jumping on a bandwagon because there's never been a wagon. Anybody can be a Texan. Anybody can be a Texan.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. I'm pumped.
But you don't have to move here.
I know. I've seen the Houston traffic, so it rivals LA. So it's
no, we're not near LA. We have
getting
times
close.
like, no. Like you can move around, just avoid certain roads at certain times of the day. You can't do that in LA.
Oh my goodness. One quick question on the defense. They really took a step forward against the run last year. Became a very good team by the end of the season, a very good team against the run. Teams were still able to throw against them, even though Derek Stingley was really good. Does it sound like there's going to be more of an emphasis on kind of like firming up that secondary? I'm asking that just for in case there might be more shootouts that we might see.
I think that I really like this defense a lot. I mean, part of it starts with DeMeco Ryans.
Yeah.
This is, I mean, even though they have a defensive coordinator who's a really good guy, I mean, this is DeMeco's defense. and they've added components to the defense. Some people think that they should have added more at secondary. I think that they're going to really have a big competition and see who's performing in camp and into the season. But what I would suspect is if you have a good offense or the potential of a good offense, it causes teams to be more aggressive because you either, you're getting behind in games or you're worried that you're going to get behind in games and that you need to go toe to toe. So like if you look at good offenses over the years, you will sometimes see numbers that are pretty high in terms of the pass because they have to pass because they get behind, or they have to play a more aggressive game script because they know they're facing CJ Stroud. So for teams like that, I kind of understand some, you're going to, the offense knows what they're doing, so they're going to get a certain number of catches done. But I will also say that this is going to be a very aggressive defense. So, teams need to be careful from passing too much because, they've worked on, making their pass rush heavier, and that makes everything easier on the secondary. And and they really value picking up the ball. So I mean, I think that there are going to be games where people are going to be able to throw on them, but I think part of that's just going to be they're facing some very good quarterbacks this year, and
yes,
the teams are going to need to play aggressive against the Texans. They just are.
One game that I'm really circling a lot, and I talked about this with my Baltimore Ravens NFL insider, that Week 17 game where the Ravens have to come to Houston and play indoors. I think that's going to be a pinball game. To me that's
and it's going to be hard because all these people are like, ooh, let's load up on the Texans, but during the time when fantasy playoffs are, it's going to be interesting. And they have the Dolphins they're playing the Ravens, and then what was the other team? It's like a very short period of time where they're playing three teams that are just tough outs, and they're doing it in like a 10-day span. So like they are going to have to survive that part of the season, and they're going to have to play well early in the season to get enough wins so that there's a little less pressure when they're facing that difficult stretch of games later in the season.
Yeah, those fantasy playoffs, weeks 15 to 17, it's going to be Miami, Kansas City, and Baltimore.
Good luck with that. Like
so that's gonna be fun.
Like somebody in the league office is like, "Woo, let's load up the Texans with some fun right here." And this is going to be the interesting thing to me about this season. Like they're definitely playing a first place schedule, and sometimes that is a difference maker for teams. Like sometimes teams cannot deal with that, and really good teams can't deal with that sometimes. They had all these noon starts last year, and now they have a lot of primetime games, and now they have games at strange times. They have Sunday night games, all this. This is a season where they need to not eat the cheese and really understand that they have to be very, very mature. Like this is a mature schedule. Like you have to be handling your business because, it's going to be harder than last year. Projected strength of schedule isn't a real thing, but real strength of schedule is. But, just projecting the strength of schedule, those are some teams that have been good teams for a long time and have been in the playoffs and things like that. And so this is the next step. Can they show that kind of maturity? I'm really interested to see it.
Yeah, I can hardly wait. That Kansas City game is going to be in Kansas City 4 days before Christmas on Saturday night. Can you imagine Taylor? It's gonna, Can you imagine? No, not on Saturday night. It's gonna be Saturday during the day. But can you imagine Taylor Swift with in a suite with Patrick Mahomes and CJ Stroud down on the field? It's gonna be fun. Oh,
I know. I mean, like it's almost like a joke, but it's like all like it's gonna be the pre-playoffs, maybe, like if they're lucky. I mean, but like
if
you
they're
can
lucky,
have
you're
all
right.
these
They're
big
fortunate.
expectations, but sometimes if you get injuries at the wrong time, it can really just be pretty devastating. But they're hoping that this is a reload team where okay, next man up is really a thing, where the next man up actually has things to bring to the table, and the scheme and the quarterback is good enough. Or if the quarterback goes down, the scheme is good enough with the people understanding the scheme that they can still win some games when guys are out. And that's a hard thing to do, but they showed that they could do it at least once last year. They beat the Tennessee Titans in Tennessee when they were wearing their Oilers cosplay.
Oh, that's right.
And CJ Stroud didn't even play. Case Keenum for the win for Houston. How about that?
Oh goodness! Against the Oilers.
It was. I have to tell you, as an old timer, it was very confusing to me because
I believe it.
Like that Oiler player went down, and there's like a part of me that's like, oh no, wait, this is dumb. Like it was like the dumbest thing ever. Like we are still paying for the dumb decisions made in the 90s that put everybody in an awkward position. But that game in particular was just really awkward and strange. But like here we are, decisions in the 90s. We can't, at least Reggie Bush got his Heisman back.
Yeah.
Maybe at some point we can just shake somebody and go, you know what? Putting "Love You Blue" on the back of your Oilers jersey doesn't make any sense at all, given that "Love You Blue" was about the connection between players in a city and had nothing to do with Tennessee nonsense.
Right.
Like we don't have to pretend that this is normal, like none of that's normal. These were dumb decisions made in the 90s, and it would be nice if ego and money could just figure things out and make it less awkward for everybody. But I'm not going to pretend that it's not bizarre. And frankly, that whole franchise is cursed because of decisions like that.
30 years ago. Well,
that decision's just recent.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, that one for
last
season.
Like we could go, oh well, these were these people a long time ago, and they were just vulgar and disgusting back then. No, this is a vulgar and disgusting decision that was made in this decade, and we don't have to pretend it's normal or cool. We can just say, hey, they are cursed forever in an irrelevant franchise, and they just just another horrible thing named after the Titans.
Oh man, well we're gonna see what comes out, but let's end on a fun note.
Yes.
Any I always ask about Mexican food. Any recent hot takes?
No recent hot takes. I was having a discussion with somebody if I've eaten Mexican food too hot for me. And okay. I have not encountered that yet. I don't really want to encounter, I see all those stunt shows where people are eating hot wings and they're a little too hot. I don't want something like that. I just find that all around us, there's so much good Mexican food of all different kinds of styles. And I like it spicy enough where I know I'm still alive. and I can taste the meat or the salsa or whatever, like, oh, yes. I'm alive, this is wonderful.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, that, and really with just about anyone. In fact, I'm probably just putting salsa on like rice and beans to me is the right amount of heat makes it perfect. Well, we had the right amount of
heat as long as I can. If I can eat heat, I'm eating heat. I feel bad for you that can't eat heat, or like the doctor says you can't do it anymore. If the doctor says I can do stuff, I'm doing it.
Oh man, enjoy it. Well, we had plenty of heat here, mi amiga. This was awesome. This was awesome. Please pump anything you want. Anything you want.
I'm going to be publishing things over the course of the summer. My pin tweet is trying to get as many Texan fans to go to Canton, Ohio for Andre Johnson's induction into the Hall of Fame. He's going to be the first Texan. He's not the first Houstonian, but all the other Houstonians are in the Tennessee Titans part of the Hall of Fame. But history only happens once. And the way that we appreciate our history comes into the present because the people now can see that they are a part of history. Like, we are making history every day. For every time that the Texans do something, that is creating the history that we made. Like, we did not choose for the Oilers to go away. We had no control over that, but we did choose about our now, and our now is, let's have fun and let's appreciate greatness when they can see it. So I'm excited to see decades of Texans fans. And if people out there think that they can't go, check out that post. Maybe you can go, because there's ways of making it practical and less expensive if you look to different ways of doing it.
And hey, you know what? I'm going to sign off on that because I probably had Andre Johnson on a lot of fantasy rosters over the years. One of the most fantasy just phenomenal. I mean, he was right up there with Calvin Johnson for that era as far as being unstoppable. Well, and anybody who needs any kind of incentive to go to the National Football Hall of Fame, the Pro Football Hall of Fame, it is an incredible experience. I've never been. Oh, I
promised myself I would not go until Andre was in.
Oh, well, so
this is big for me.
It's phenomenal because give yourself time, because, as a football fan, there's experiences to see and all over the place. It's absolutely just one of the great experiences. I've gone the last 2 years where there's a fantasy football expo in Canton, Ohio, the week after Hall of Fame induction weekend. So planning to go this year, and I'm going to go find Andre's plaque, and I'll tweet it, and I'm going to tweet at you and just,
please do.
But yeah, who was one of the first players I made sure to find?
Who?
The Tyler Rose. Earl Campbell, number 34. Him and Dan Marino were the first. The two. Him, Dan Marino, and Eric Dickerson were the three that I made.
I'll do Longhorn for Earl.
For Earl. Oh my goodness. All right, mi amiga. That was fantastic.
Always fun.
Always fun. Everybody, muchas gracias for joining us. Also, make sure you're following Familia FFB on YouTube. Hit that like, hit that subscribe, get the great content. Also, I forgot to mention this earlier. We're back with Underdog. Hit the promo code Familia. Just no other number. Just Underdog promo code Familia, and then you're going to get matched $1 for every dollar you purchase up to $100. So, Stephanie, muchas gracias for joining us. Familia, otra vez, muchas gracias for joining us. And remember, todos somos familia. Salud.